The anomaly at the edge of the Sol system wasn't a weapon. When the 47 ships of the execution fleet dropped from hyperspace, they fully expected to find orbital mines or heavily fortified defensive grids. Instead, deep space bent like water around a single massive hull the size of 3 dreadnoughts. Shifting geometric patterns danced continuously across its metallic skin. At the helm of this reality-distorting titan sat a small, graying woman who looked exactly like someone's grandmother. The history books say humanity surrendered. The truth is far more dangerous. 3 weeks earlier, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood barefoot on the cold decking of Concordia Prime Station. It was exactly 3 in the morning, Earth Standard Time. 30,000 light-years separated her from the familiar dirt of her grandmother's tomato garden. The sharp, acrid smell of sterile air recirculators dominated her cramped diplomatic quarters. She pressed her right thumb hard into her palm, a grounding habit she kept meticulously hidden during formal negotiations. A massive holographic projection flickered to life, dominating the center of the narrow room. Ambassador ZTHKA of the Zephyrian Coalition towered within the blue-tinted light field. His long, thin frame consisted of silver microscales that shifted constantly, mimicking the flow of living mercury. He possessed no visible pupils. Only swirling, darker silver patterns drifted across his eyes, currently locked directly onto Elena. "Your species stands accused," ZTHKA stated. His voice carried a strange, unnatural cadence. It resonated like cold wind blowing violently through hollow brass pipes. The low frequencies physically vibrated the deck plates beneath Elena's bare feet. "The evidence of illegal quantum cascade generation is absolute," the alien continued. "Our remote sensor grids detected the gravitational anomalies yesterday." Elena maintained a perfectly neutral expression. "We have constructed no such devices." "The Senate has already voted," the Zephyrian replied. His left hand gave a singular, arrogant twitch. It was his only physical tell. "An inspection fleet will arrive at your outer colonies shortly. If we find exotic matter weapons, your worlds will be systematically reduced to ash. Humanity is too primitive to be dangerous, Ambassador. Do not try to be." The holographic transmission cut out without another word. Darkness rushed back into the room. Elena did not panic. She did not immediately contact her superiors. She walked directly to the small sink, poured a glass of recycled water, and drank it slowly. The diplomatic charade they had played for 15 years was finally over. She requested an immediate, heavily encrypted transit back to the Sol system. The underground magnetic train rattled violently as it descended deep beneath the lunar crust. Elena watched the dark tunnel walls flash past the reinforced glass. The military had locked down the entire administrative sector. Heavily armed guards stood at every steel bulkhead. Luna Command Center sat deeply buried beneath silver domes on a dead, blue-marbled moon. Admiral Chen waited for her inside the deepest command bunker. Heavy exhaustion etched deep lines across his face. He didn't look like a man preparing to firmly deny false charges. He looked like an officer heavily burdened by a terrifying secret. "They are coming to execute us," Elena announced, taking a seat at the heavy metal table. Chen nodded slowly, bringing up a secure data pad. "Project Prometheus began 12 years ago, right after we officially joined the galactic community. Only a dozen people in all of human space know what you are about to learn." He pushed the glowing pad across the table. It displayed a highly complex engineering schematic. It wasn't a bomb. It was an engine. Thousands of small, cylindrical chambers interlocked in a massive, mathematically dense lattice. "We haven't violated a single word of the treaty," Chen explained, his voice dropping to a cautious whisper. "The law bans reality distortion fields. It strictly prohibits exotic matter generation. It says absolutely nothing about fusion." Elena frowned, studying the glowing lines. Fusion is inefficient. Every major species abandoned it centuries ago. Exactly, the Admiral smiled grimly. Everyone assumes it is obsolete, so we spent a decade perfecting it in total secrecy. Distributed fusion architecture, quantum entangled reaction chambers. The entire hull of the ship acts as the primary reactor. A profound silence filled the cold concrete room. Alina slowly realized the true scale of the massive deception. Humanity hadn't stolen advanced alien technology. They had weaponized and ignored science. The total energy output, she asked quietly. Roughly 1,000 times greater than the Zephyrian flagship, Chen replied. Alina pressed her thumb deeply into her palm again. Her mind raced rapidly through the complex political permutations. If Earth fought back with traditional weapons, the coalition would officially frame them as violent monsters. If they tried to hide the ship, they would be hunted to extinction. We don't deny their accusations, Alina decided, her voice gaining sudden, sharp strength. We invite them to see for themselves. The strategy required absolute, flawless timing. Alina dispatched the exact coordinates of the Sol system to ZTHKA, officially welcoming the diplomatic inspection. Then she traveled on a blackout flight to the classified shipyard, hiding far beyond Neptune. The sheer, impossible size of the Prometheus Unbound defied basic logic. It sat silently in the deep darkness of the outer rim, a leviathan constructed of dark metal and shifting geometric plating. Inside the vast vessel, the massive corridors curved in strange, unnatural angles. Alina found herself standing firmly on the primary command bridge. Captain Maria Santos sat calmly in the central command chair. She wore a faded blue sweater over her standard naval uniform. Beside her, resting perfectly on a pristine tactical console, sat a cracked ceramic mug. Faded, peeling letters on its side read, "World's Most OK Boss." The strong scent of cheap, synthetic coffee radiated clearly from the cup. It felt entirely out of place on the most advanced vessel in existence. "Captain," Alina nodded politely. "Ambassador," Santos replied, picking up the mug, "we are fully spooled up. Core temperature is holding perfectly steady." Warning alarms suddenly blared loudly across the upper deck. Red light washed intensely over the bridge crew. The primary sensor officer shouted out a rapid string of spatial coordinates. "Multiple slipspace ruptures detected," the young lieutenant called out, his voice noticeably tight. 47 capital ships, well, 46 if you count the scout corvette as a frigate. It is the entire coalition fleet. Through the expansive main viewport, space physically tore open. Massive vessels constructed of jagged rock, glowing crystal, and sleek black metal spilled violently into the void. The sheer mass of the incoming ships heavily distorted the local gravitational field. The Chronac dreadnoughts drifted heavily alongside Velter crystalline cruisers. ZTHK's massive flagship led the imposing formation. They had come to pass final judgment. They had come to burn the Earth. "They are locking targeting scanners," the tactical officer warned loudly. "All of them." Alina stepped forward, resting her hands firmly on the metal railing. "Open a wide channel, all frequencies." The communications relay engaged with a soft chirp. Every alien bridge in the massive fleet would receive their audio feed. "This is Ambassador Vasquez," she announced calmly. "Welcome to our system." The alien execution fleet fully expected a stationary target. They found a massive optical illusion instead. The Prometheus Unbound sat completely motionless, its hull shimmering strangely as it actively refracted the distant starlight. On the Zephyrian flagship, ZTHKA stared furiously at his advanced sensor readouts. His hollow brass voice echoed loudly across the open channel. "Humanity, lower your defensive shields and prepare immediately for boarding. Any resistance will result in immediate planetary bombardment." Captain Santos did not reach for the weapon's console. She picked up her cracked mug. She took another slow, deliberate sip. Then she tapped her fingernail twice against the ceramic rim. "Engage transit," Santos ordered softly. There was no bright engine flare, no physical buildup of thrust. Space simply folded. The human Leviathan vanished entirely from the Coalition sensor grids. Less than a second later, the Prometheus Unbound materialized directly between ZTHK's flagship and the rest of the alien armada. It had crossed 50,000 kilometers instantly. It used zero visible propulsion. Absolute heavy silence fell rapidly over the 47 alien bridges. The Velter crystalline cruisers immediately broke their synchronized formation, their harmonic engines whining in distress. The heavy Chronac dreadnoughts fired maneuvering thrusters frantically just to avoid colliding with each other in the sudden confusion. "Sensors are detecting massive energy readings," a Velter voice chimed over the comms, laced heavily with panic. "Multiple fusion signatures. The raw output levels are impossible." The Chronac delegate's rocky voice cracked heavily over the channel. The ethereal representatives shimmered with visible, frantic agitation. "This is impossible," ZTHKA finally spoke. The rigid arrogance had been completely stripped from his tone. His silver microscales locked into a tight pattern of sheer shock. He stared blindly at the human dreadnought. His left hand twitched violently, a gesture of forced, absolute respect. "You accused us of building weapons," Alina said softly into the microphone. "We built something that made weapons obsolete. You perfected what we threw away. Now we have perfected what you ignored." Deep within the human ship's massive reactor, a secondary frequency hummed steadily, a harmonic resonance indicating this vessel was merely a prototype. The emergency Senate session lasted less than a single hour. The mood shifted rapidly from pure hostility to an uneasy, reverent curiosity. Alina formally proposed the immediate creation of the Galactic Innovation Consortium, an equal partnership regardless of a species' age or traditional technological base. The vote passed overwhelmingly, 31 in favor, 16 opposed. The Zephyrian coalition abstained entirely, but ZTHKA bowed his head slightly as he exited the grand chamber. The old hierarchy was officially dead. 6 months later, the consortium headquarters on Concordia Prime hummed constantly with joint research teams. Chronac engineers studied human blueprints. Velter mathematicians mapped new gravitational wave models. The absolute threat of annihilation had dissolved into an era of unprecedented, cautious collaboration. A small historical museum occupied the central atrium of the new facility. It held minor cultural artifacts from the founding member worlds. In the exact center of the room sat a sealed, climate-controlled glass case. Inside rested a chipped ceramic cup. A soft, rhythmic artificial light illuminated the rim where coffee stains still lingered in the cracks.